Uh, what the heck is going on with this show? I like that she's at an aquarium and there's a bunch of jellyfish. Aquarium so far is very, very positively correlated with how much I like a show. Um, I think the name is stupid, but that doesn't matter. Why is she in a bunny girl outfit? I guess I'll have to watch the show to find out. I had every reason to think this show would be bad and stupid, except for the aquarium, I guess. But then a lot of people kept telling me it was good. I had friends who would compare it to Monogatari in my presence. Do you know the audacity to compare a show to Monogatari in my presence as one of the biggest Monogatari degenerates that I know of? Um, I don't know. It it's not by Shaft, so how could they? It can't really have the Monogatari direction style, which is so uniquely Shaft. And I feel like that direction style is so inherent to the experience of watching Monogatari that I really can't imagine being at all invested in it without that aspect. Like now that I already am invested in it, I can go back and I can read the manga, which is great, and I can read the light novels, which are also great, and get into them. But I needed that level of interesting directorial power, which just can't possibly be here, I would imagine. Unless this studio, I don't even know what studio did this, like really knocked it out of the park. I don't know, man. Is it really good? It just looks like it can't be good. Is it really like Monogatari? Nothing's like Monogatari. I don't know. So maybe I'll watch this at some point. Maybe. Or is it an adaptation of something? Maybe I'll just read whatever it's an adaptation of. So you would think after being so burned by Darling in the Franxx that I would be a little hesitant to jump into another Trigger show about robots and fighting and kaiju and stuff. No, no. I still love Trigger, man. I still will give Trigger the benefit of the doubt any day of the week. So I leapt into this optimistically, and I would say for the most part, I was very impressed. I thought the direction was really well done. The set design I thought was fantastic. Every scene is so rich with details, and it really feels like a living, breathing world. I thought the character designs were pretty great. Of course, the one girl, I can't think of her name, you know, Thighs girl, everyone likes. But I felt pretty compelled by that character too. She had a real aura of sorrow, which I thought was interesting. Um, so yeah, lots to like about this show. Again, it's like this feeling that in the critical area, the area where I was supposed to be most invested, I ended up being least invested. I think it's awesome that they're doing kind of the Ultraman kaiju real kind of classic feel with the character designs and the transformation scenes and the fight scenes. And I'm not a huge fan of those, so I can't really remark on this, but it seemed like they were really well done too. That it was reflective of a really sincere love and passion from the people at Trigger, which isn't surprising. But I don't know, I just like couldn't get into it. Like whenever it got to the fight scene, I was like, all right. Let's get back to like watching the characters wander around in the city, or let's get back to looking at stuff in the junk store. So I don't know. I'd like to finish it at some point. I got about halfway through, I think. And it wasn't so much that I was like, ugh, enough of this, I'm dropping it. Just conflicting time priorities and such. So at some point, I'll get back to it. The background of the picture I'm using and the background of my apartment are almost like the same color, and the door like lines up here. Okay. Okay, so this is Uzumate. Um, I don't know how this exists. I don't know how this happened. It's like a really degenerate, extremely degenerate series about this lolicon muscle maid, this extremely muscle-bound woman that used to be a fighter pilot, and now works as the maid of a young girl whom she constantly lusts and obsesses over and does all sorts of horrible line crossing things to. Um, and somehow this manga, which already its existence is like insane, was adapted into an anime by Doga Kobo. Doga Kobo being a studio I quite like. They do a lot of slice of life properties. They did Yuri Yuri, which I thought was great. They did New Game, I thought was great. But this has received a level of love and attention and budget from them that I honestly didn't even think they were capable of pulling off. Even after that illustrious resume, I was still blown away by how far they went with this show. Not just in terms of how far they went in like the degenerate direction, but just how much love and effort they put into the show. It's extremely well animated. It's extremely well directed. The character animation is sublime in some cases. All of the slapstick comedy scenes are like really lively and well done. They probably put more money and effort into this show than any other show they ever have. Just mind blowing, because I really don't know who this show is for. um, and I mean, it's funny. I can't deny that it's really funny just watching how depraved this maid can act. And there's also like pretty nice heartfelt moments. Like the show has pretty nice positive messages about being yourself and friendship and the value of taking risks and kind of exploring who you are as a person. And all of that is really nice. In this scene especially, or in this episode, not in this scene, but in less depraved scenes of this episode, when Misha, the girl, is giving like a speech about taking care of hamsters, I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like, this is something that I haven't seen in anime before. Like this sort of situation and this sort of character and her response to it, and this feeling of her like stepping up to the plate. I was like, oh man, this is all really cool. And in an earlier episode where they're talking about the idea of like cuteness and how maybe people will judge you for your appearance at first, but then they'll get to know you. And I'm like, yeah, this is all really nice. But the problem is that every single time they just can't help themselves. And whatever lovely message, the heartwarming speech, whatever it is undercut savagely and repeatedly by depravity and perversion and like really bizarre, twisted jokes, which it does make it pretty funny, that jarring contrast, but it really undermines any sort of goodwill I could have for the existence of the show. And the other problem is that if they don't do that, if they go on too sincerely for too long, and kind of take themselves seriously for a bit, which happens in some of the later episodes, then you're forced to confront the actuality of what you're seeing again, which I'll remind you is a muscle-bound ex-fighter pilot who is an unabashed, explicit lolicon. And you just like, suddenly the screen turns into a mirror and you're just watching yourself watching it and going, how did my life become this? How is this my real life right now? Anyways, that's Uzumade. This is a Q&A show about archery. I kind of forgot it was airing when it was airing. And then I watched an episode of it randomly not too long ago at a friend's place when we were just dicking around on Crunchyroll. And I really liked it. I was pretty compelled. The animation was beautiful, of course. The way they depicted the archery I thought was fantastic. Again, it all kind of comes down to how well they present the main activity, and I think this is something KyoAni understands really well. So yeah, I'd like to watch this at some point. Just haven't yet. Let me know. Have you seen it? Was it good? This I also wanted to watch. It's got Namori character designs, the person who created Yuri Yuri. So just that association alone makes me want to watch it. It's about spies. I think it takes itself like pretty seriously. Like, of course, it's gonna have kind of slice of life moments and jokes and stuff, but my understanding is that like a substantial part of the show is spying and doing ninja stuff and action sequences, which I don't know. I could be into that. On paper, I generally don't think I am, but then sometimes they surprise me and they do it in a way that's like very fun and very fresh. So I have pretty high expectations for this show. I would like to watch it at some point. But at the time, it just wasn't a priority, so we didn't watch it. This I watched quite recently. It's a short. I watched pretty much all of it on the plane ride to Japan. I thought it was great. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was a really interesting look at the world of selling comics and such in Japan. It has self-referential Nos Guardian moments, like where people recognize him as the author of the series, or don't recognize him, as the case may be, and they talk about him drawing the comics and stuff. I think it started as just a comic he was posting on Twitter. So I think that is really cool and really fun. They have all sorts of fun with the format, all sorts of fun with the direction. Because it's a short, it's like kind of low budget, but it doesn't have animation in the way that we typically think of animation. But what they do, I think they do fantastically. Like, just the way that they draw his skull every time just cracks me up. There's even stuff that I never would have thought this series would appeal to me on the level of. Like, I really like in shows where there's kind of a hidden parallel hierarchy of the characters. And you get this a lot in, like, shonen, where every character has like a personality and relationships and an appearance and all that, but then they also have this extra dimension of like how strong they are or how good they are at whatever game, which I think is really exciting. It's sort of like another spectrum of characteristics on which you can rank the characters and kind of look for patterns or inconsistencies or whatever. All of that is fun to me, and this show even has that because you get to meet people that are further up in the hierarchy of their bookstore than him. Like, when you meet like the regional manager or whatever, he's kind of like hyped up, and the way that his personality reflects that hype is really interesting to me. And especially because all of these characters, as far as I know, are based on real people, maybe like amalgamations of people. But when you start to notice kind of patterns in their behavior, like more subtleties and depth to the way that they behave, and you're like, oh, that feels consistent. Well, of course it does. It's a real person. And that's a really rare experience in anime. It comes up much more frequently, again, in something like Noscard, like autofiction. So it was cool to see that same sort of natural character development happening here. So yeah, lots and lots of reasons to like the show. I don't know, it probably could have made the list. Maybe if I watched it earlier and had more time to think about it between watching it and making the list. But yeah, check this one out. It's great. There's a baby crying next door. Anyways, this is... Wait, did I do 2 seasons in one video? This is the end of one season. This is the beginning of the other season. At what point did I start talking about the season we're currently in? Or that just ended, I mean. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Anyways, this is a slice of life show about a girl who meets a vampire. They move in together almost immediately. There's lots of nice Yuri vibes. They're joined by a second vampire and one of her friends to make a nice, lively quartet. A staple of slice of life shows. And they do pretty much just normal slice of life things. It's nice. It's nice. The fact that she's a vampire is the source of a lot of running jokes, and sometimes is like a major plot point that motivates something, you know, getting over some inconvenience. It's not like super significant though. Usually the humor is just your standard slice of life stuff. It's telling that this show didn't make the list. That this show is no longer good enough to be on the top 15. In previous years, I would have been so starved for slice of life content that something like this would be like an auto-include, even in the top 5. And I think on all of and like kind of thinking of it like that, as thinking of it as like an essential fluid that I need to sustain me, slice of life energy, as if I'm some sort of slice of life vampire, then the show definitely succeeds. It fulfills that role for me. But it isn't quite good enough. And it's kind of exciting that I get to say something like that, although I feel a little bad. I think the big thing is that it just doesn't deviate too much from the structure of the 4 koma it was originally posted in. Um, so yeah, it's an adaptation of a 4 koma manga, like a 4 panel comic. Um, and those already kind of have a natural rhythm to them and kind of a timeline for punchlines that overall creates like a nice emotional feeling, like the balance between comedy and just sort of conversation and other emotions and stuff is very well done. So I think it's totally fine to just sort of adapt that wholesale. But what it means is that there's kind of a ceiling on how experimental, how dynamic, how exciting your direction can be, because you're always kind of fitting back into that structure. And this show, like occasionally, it would vary some more, um, which was exciting. There was like a few after credit scenes that I was pretty impressed by. But for the most part, you can kind of count on that same 4 koma timing again and again and again. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like other shows will go beyond that. Other shows will actually do sequence-based directing. We'll actually kind of go for like a cinematic feel. We'll actually try to aim for like a tonality for the entire episode, even if that episode contains several unrelated chapters being stitched together. So yeah, it's just not quite there. This, on the other hand, is an example of a show that did all of those things. This is another Doga Kobo show. I have no idea how they did this at the same time as Maid Dragon because, or not Maid Dragon. Wow, that was like a real Freudian slip. In some ways, you know, Uza Maid, it kind of feels like Maid Dragon, like when KyoAni made Maid Dragon. That you just went like, how in the world is this okay? Like, how in the world is such a high effort, big budget studio going to throw an entire season's worth of budget at something like this that is so niche? But the difference is that when KyoAni took Maid Dragon and made it like even more wholesome and really widely accessible and made like a crossover hit, Doga Kobo took Uzumaid in the opposite direction. Like, we need to narrow the audience for this. We need to cut people out at every turn. Also interesting, do you think Akari is going to grow up to be the Maid Dragon girl? Or the Uzumaid girl, I mean? They look vaguely similar. She got a lot more muscular. They both have an interest in, like, the same sorts of girls. Huh? Huh? I don't know. It's just a theory. Anyways. So, yeah, Anime Yell. It's a slice of life show about girls who do cheerleading. I thought it was really great. The cheerleading sequences, again, so key to your enjoyment of the show, were done excellently. Very well animated. They used like insert songs, including some like pre-existing insert songs readapted for the show, which I thought was really exciting. All the character archetypes were great. Nothing too far outside your standards, kind of what you expect, but with enough unique twists that I found it really compelling. The main plot threads of, you know, this girl, as you can imagine, oh, I'm going to learn how to do cheerleading. I'm going to take an interest in it. I haven't really taken an interest in anything before. This is so exciting. That's great. This girl's like, oh, I've become disillusioned with cheerleading. I felt rejected by my team that wasn't as into it as I was, but you've rekindled my spirit. You've made me invested in cheerleading again. You probably could have predicted that just from this image, but it's done really well. It's very fun. They have this like sincere appreciation and this almost naive hope that the viewer is also watching it with the same sincere appreciation for the sport of cheerleading. There's an early episode where they teach you how to make pom-poms. They really just teach you, you know? As if there's people watching this that are going to go and make pom-poms. And for all I know, there are people watching this who are going to go and make pom-poms. I actually wanted to go and make pom-poms. I should have gone and make pom-poms. Why didn't I go make pom-poms? You just have to go buy ribbon. It's a very simple method. They teach you. They teach you. And, you know, I really like that stuff like that. That there's not a layer of cynicism around it. There's not a layer of, like, obligation around the core element of the show. The show is motivated primarily through a genuine appreciation of cheerleading. And it really conveys that to you very well, too. In a large variety of situations, the spirit of cheer comes through, which I think is great. Like, there's episodes where they're doing literal cheerleading at a sports event, and then episodes where they go to the manga club and help them meet their deadline, or they go to the cooking club and try out dishes. Like, that's so much fun. There's even one where they give relationship advice, which in a really breathtaking and very moving scene, they talk about homosexuality, about Yuri stuff, in a way that isn't dismissive or just played for jokes, but actually has some like gravity to it. And I really was moved by that. I was really happy that a show like this, that, you know, of course has the requisite level of friendship, S-class friendship among the girls, would go that extra step and really kind of address it. Like, that's cool. That's really cool. So yeah, even this show though, even this show didn't make the list. And again, it's not just because there was 15 shows that I liked better than it, although that is the case, but that the niche that it would occupy in other seasons or in other years, that would maybe make it more of an auto-include, that would maybe make it all the more memorable and important to me, has been so thoroughly filled. This year was a great year for anime in general, but for Slice of Life in particular, like, we're gonna see some pretty amazing things. Which brings us, of course, to our top 15, which will be in another video. All right, goodbye for now.